but I know that if I please God, you're going to be pleased. Because I know what God's plan and purpose is for you, and he wants you to be pleased. Maybe not in the way you think you want to be, but Luke 4, verses 7 and 8, before you read about this temptation, about the kingdoms of this world, I'll give you all of them.
Therefore, if you will worship before me, all will be yours. And Jesus answered and said to him, Get behind me, Satan, for it is written, You shall worship the Lord your God, and him only you shall serve. Very clear again. You cannot take interest in the kingdoms of this world and serve God at the same time. Paul talks about being entangled. This is kind of what he's saying here. I can't get caught in this bowl of spaghetti with you. I'm sorry. I just can't do it because I won't be able to focus, seek God, like David says, go after God, hear him, know his hearts, what he's saying, the whole thing. Can't do both. In Luke 22, verses 25 and 26,
Jesus told them, In this world the kings and great men lord it over their people, yet they are called friends of the people. But among you it will be different. Those who are the greatest among you should take the lowest rank, and the leader should be like a servant.
Powerful passage again. Mark had given me this thing from Bob Mumford that it's really long, but there was something he said. Government administrators who have been unable to rule wisely or who have not managed the resources of our nations are themselves preparing to survive at the expense of the persons whom they were elected to serve. It is not possible for this to leave our nations and our economics in any normal condition. That's really a sad statement. The point is that they're preparing, they're doing everything necessary. They see what's going on. I'm always fascinated by the way the government does things, spends money like it's their money, and it's actually it's our money. That the whole thing, and that's what he's really commenting on. And he's saying it can't last with that kind of, because it's wrong. They should be putting things in place for their constituents that they have sworn before God to serve. Kind of interesting. But the role of government, servants, we said, these are things they're supposed to do: maintain order, not contribute to its chaos. I read an article this last week. It was kind of interesting. Again, it was written by somebody who wasn't exactly sensitive to government. He was making the comment that the reason why they're all lawyers is so that they can all keep making laws, and the more laws they make, the more confusing it gets. You have no idea anymore what's going on, and that's the plan: chaos. I'm reading a book that I'm really enjoying, The Lost World of Adam and Eve, and he refers to the serpent as a chaos creature, that he came into the garden, regardless of how we theologically sort it out. He's a chaos creature. He comes in to create chaos because everything was in order and everything was good. And he came in with this view towards, this is what I do. I create chaos. I destroy or try to impact the order that God has put in a situation. I don't know of any family breakups where the enemy hasn't had a certain foothold in some way to take something that God has ordered and bring chaos into it. And if you don't deal with the chaos in a godly way, most anything can happen. In the workplace, how many times have we worked faithfully? It's another sphere, it's another governmental situation where we worked faithfully and hard. Thank God for people like you that are saying, wait a minute, I know I have to work within the system, but I can bring the kingdom of God into this kingdom of this world. I can do that. I've got this position to bring peace and righteousness and a wholeness into the situation, and trying to work within what we're saying right now and be respectful and submissive and serve and do the things that you're supposed to do. Has unrighteousness prevailed? Because people are all messed up with chaos. The order has been disrupted by something, some force, whatever. They're supposed to represent community on a small or large scale. There are representatives. When our president goes over to another country in a different part of the world, he's a representative of this country. He's supposed to be, not a representative of himself. Theoretically, nobody should even care. He means nothing. He's a figurehead of what? Of us. The values that we embrace, that we share, that we believe in, which is a complicated thing on a national level, let's be honest. When you've got all these different religions who would kill and die for them, and you've got the economic sweeps that we've got in this country, and you've got gender issues that are being fueled by our leadership, and racial issues there. And then you got some guy that's supposed to go over there. What's he supposed to represent? It's, like somebody said on the television the other day, why anybody would want to be a president is beyond my wildest imagination. What on earth are you thinking? You can only hope and pray that when you hear the words out of our president-elect right now, that he means it, that he does want to serve, and he does want to fix things and would like to bring the country back together. You can only hope and pray that it's not just a matter of him actually meaning it, but somehow by the grace of God, by the prayers of the church and a variety of things, us in our own little spheres, wherever we are, to be helping our president because he wants to serve us. So we do what we can. They're supposed to, like I say, represent the values, the positions, the atmosphere that we are responsible for in our spheres. There's no sense looking at, President-elect Trump or President Clinton when I'm acting like an idiot in my own home. That's not his fault. I mean, I'd like it to be. I'm always looking for somebody to blame. She made me do it. It's kind of, we're always looking for somebody else. But really that whole thing, that whole sphere of government begins here. Who's governing here? Whose government am I under? Whose authority and accountability have I accepted? The whole thing. This is a huge subject, government. When you go to the beginning of Proverbs 31, but it's very clear what a king, if you would, what they're responsible for when it comes to justice and judgment, trying to represent the needs of those who can't represent themselves, trying to speak up for those who have no voice. I can't think of many worse feelings than a sense of hopelessness. I can't do anything. There's nothing I can do about this, especially when it's something that's very concerning. That's where God says, I know. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to have somebody who can do something about this. And when they seek me, I'll tell them what to do about this. God's into government. The atmosphere that we embrace as the church is love. And like Jesus said, it's easy to love lovable people. It's a whole different ballgame to love those that are not very lovable. So I get it. It's another thing. Our relationship to the government, S&S. Submit because you're subject to them. Why? Well, we can say because the Bible tells me so. We can go there if we want. And I've got a ton of scriptures, by the way, but I don't want to keep you guys here all day. But when you look at them and you study them, there's one common thread throughout them, that we submit as to the Lord, the fear of the Lord. In other words, we recognize when Paul brought us Romans 13, and he said, this authority is from God. So you submit to them because you're actually submitting to God. No, they're not God by any means. They may not even be God-like. They may be totally unrighteous. They may be whatever they are, but that's not the point. Our call is to subject ourselves to them. Submitting and being a subject is going to require obedience. There's no sense saying, well, yeah, I submit to the government, and then you don't obey them when they tell you to do something, whatever it might be. Now, Jesus demonstrated that for us. We've talked about that before when it came to paying taxes. It was a ludicrous situation. I own this place. Who am I paying taxes to? Myself? What am I paying taxes to him? But so we don't offend him, let's pay our taxes. That should blow our minds, that the creator of this place is being asked to pay rent. It's like, what? But Jesus comes from a place, even he is understanding, but this is the system, this is the way it works. So let's pay our taxes. He does that in the same place, whose coin is this? Whose inscription do you see? Well, then give it to him. What am I going to do with it? Do you think that's going to usher in the kingdom of God? I told you, you can't serve both. They're very clear, Jesus, on what a Jesus life looks like. Now, granted, in 21st century America, this is a lot different. It's a lot slippier slopes at times than what it was like 2,000 years ago when Jesus was saying that, but the principles are the same. And God will show us what that means. When we're cheating on our taxes, God will show us you are actually serving money now. You're doing something that goes against what I have ordained because you want to keep back some of the money for yourself. I've got a better idea. Give them the money they have, give them the stinking taxes, and you'll be amazed at how I'll provide for you in a variety of different ways. I have done this time and time again in my life in terms of watching God provide something totally outside the box. Did I deserve it? No, it's a principle. Sowing and reaping is a wonderful principle because that's something you can talk to anybody about. They can see it. You put a kernel of corn in the ground. An elephant doesn't pop up. Corn does. Whatever you put into it is what comes out of it. When you're merciful, blessed are the merciful. Why? Because they'll obtain mercy. You know, some of the principles are downright weird. You want money? Sow it. It's like, what? I just told you I need money. Yeah, I know, so give it away. This kingdom is not like the kingdom of this world. Exactly. There's all kinds of stuff associated with our relationship to government, submitting, subjection, obedience. Like I say, I had a lot of things down here, but I did put a question down here. Now please listen to the question. Are we supposed to obey and submit to unrighteous authority? Now this is not a trick question. Are we all in agreement? The answer is yes. That we don't judge the authority, whether they're righteous or unrighteous. We submit to them, like Romans 13 says. We may not submit to what they say to do. That's a different story. But the person themselves and submitting to them, submitting to government, there's no question about it, whether it's righteous or unrighteous. When they ask us to do something that is contrary to what God has said, we don't. And that's generally where the persecution begins, because we decide, no. Because they are asking me to do something without asking their authority, and I'm going to stick with God and the major authority. So therefore, when they say, don't preach the gospel, well, that's a bit of a problem. Because if God tells me to preach the gospel, and I think he's kind of like made it clear, but whatever the situation, that's something I'm responsible before God to do. Things like that. So that's sort of like, it wasn't a trick question, but I know immediately we think in terms of, no, they're unrighteous. It doesn't matter what they are. What matters is what God says. That's where the line is drawn.